This video will demonstrate how to build a random forest regression model to predict the price of a home. Before we can begin analyzing the data, we need to import the proper Python libraries. We're going to import the Random Forest Regressor from the sklearn.ensemble library. I'm also going to be using these other libraries throughout this video. Next, we're going to load our data set. This data set shows the price of homes in the jurisdiction they live in, the size of the home, the type of the home, the bedroom, and the size of the garage. Price is the variable we're going to try and predict using our random forest regression model. What's awesome about random forest regression models is that you do not need to create dummy variables like you do with linear regression. Instead, you can just overwrite the text data in that column with numeric values. If we were to look at the residence type column here, it has the categories 2 stories and 1 story in it. So all we need to do is just write a where function that says if it's a 1 story, overwrite the value with a 1. If it's a 2 story, overwrite it with a 2. And then we can just double check that we accurately did that. Next, we're going to create our training and test data sets. So first of all, we're going to create a y variable, which is just the dependent variable we're trying to predict of price. Next, we're going to create an x variable that includes all of our independent variables that we're going to try and use to predict the price variable. Then we're going to use the train test split function, and we're going to split those x and y variables that we created up here. And we're going to split them into 4 different data sets. 2 of them are going to be training data sets, and 2 of them are going to be test data sets. And we're going to specify the size of the test data sets to be 20%. That means this function will grab 20% of the rows and shove them into the test data sets, leaving 80% of the data to train our random forest regression on. After we've created the training and test data sets, we can then set up the random forest regression algorithm. So I'm going to set it equal to the variable rf, and then I'm going to use the function RandomForestRegressor. And within that function, I'm going to specify criterion equals squared error. I'm going to specify the number of estimators equals to 3, which this will just determine how many trees the random forest is going to create to make its predictions. I'm going to specify the max depth equals 3. This will just limit the number of branches the tree will create. That way our trees won't get too out of hand for this video. I'm also going to specify the min sample split equal to 2. So I'm going to require there be 2 data points within each decision node before it will split again. After you've set up the random forest algorithm, you can then just use the fit function on that variable you created above and then apply it to the training data set. And when you do that, you should get an output box here in Jupyter that says Random Forest Regressor. This next part is completely optional, but I like to just create a variable called labels that has the names of the training data set column names in it. That way, when we run the decision trees, you can better see the names of the decision trees. To view the decision tree, we're just going to run this code here. To view tree number 1, we're going to change this to a 0. So 0 is actually tree 1. And when you run this, you'll get a tree. So this is one of the 3 trees that the random forest has used to come up with its predictions. To get tree number 2, we're just going to change this to a 1 here. And we can run this. And this is the second tree that the random forest used to make its predictions. And finally, tree number 3 here, we're going to use a 2 in this space. And this is the third tree that the random forest used to make its predictions. So instead of using all 3 of those trees and following them, which can be quite tedious, what we can then do is to predict individual data points, we can just create a new data frame with the name of the columns and then the data points, and then use the predict function to predict that data. So if we wanted to predict a home that was in jurisdiction 1, it was 2,000 square feet, it was a 1-story home, it was 4 bedrooms and had 400 square foot garage, we would just create a new data frame with that data in it, set it equal to predictions, and then using our random forest model, we're going to say .predict those predictions. And what we get is an estimated value of $251,000. So that's the value that the random forest regression model created using those 3 decision trees I showed you above. What we're then going to do is we're going to test how good the random forest performs on the test data set. So first of all, we're going to change our y-test data set and make it a data frame. We're then going to add a new column to y-test, and it's just going to be the predicted values from our random forest model. And when we run that, our y-test data set will then have the price of the house and then the predicted price. And so what we can then do is we can come up with a prediction error by running the root mean squared error using our price variable from our y-test and our predicted variable from our y-test data set. And so we run that, it looks like our random forest model has a prediction error of $64,000. That was just a quick example of how to create a random forest regression model using Jupyter. If this video is helpful, please like and subscribe.